We got to get all your scamdemic updates. Billionaires' combined wealth has reached record $10.2 trillion thanks to the scamdemic. This coming from TechSpot.com. COVID-19 has decimated many economies and several industries, costing millions of people their jobs. But for the world's billionaires, the scamdemic has helped their fortunes grow by more than a quarter, up to a record high of over $10 trillion. That makes the Pentagon's losses look like nothing. A study by Swiss bank UBS and accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, they count up your Oscar votes, found that at the start of April, global billionaire wealth stood at just a mere $8 trillion. By July, following the height of the scamdemic, it had reached $10.2 trillion. Previous peak was $8.9 trillion, recorded at the end of 2017. A lot of that increase came from billionaires betting on the recovery of global stock markets when they slumped during lockdowns between March and April. Sort of like speculators like to drive all kinds of prices down and buy it all up for pennies on the dollar. It's, I think, kind of how the Rothschilds made their fortunes. With many governments launching stimulus packages, the markets have rebounded, leaving the rich ever richer. And isn't it really interesting how the Rona doesn't get on any of the Amazon packages or any of the money at Walmart? It only affects and seems to infect small businesses. I talked about it this morning on my morning show. McDonald's, Domino's booming, while your neighborhood mom and pops are pretty much going under. James?
Yes, there are a few important points to be made here. One of which is that, of course, one of the people, the number 2 on this list of richer getting richer, is Bill Gates, of course, which once again, I mean, not that we need it, but once again puts the lie to the ridiculous notion that Bill Gates is giving his wealth away because he cares so much about the poor brown people on the other side of the world that he says he wants to depopulate. And that's why he's in charge of global health. This doctor. Oh, wait, he isn't. Whatever. So yes, this is a point that needs to be stressed again and again because it is important. It does make a difference. And I will throw in supplemental to that a link to a Nation article from last week. While the poor get sick, Bill Gates just gets richer, which makes that point rather effectively about his investments in companies like CureVac and other things, where he is literally invested in the technologies he is now pimping. That is, again, a very blatant example of how these billionaire oligarchs are literally cashing in on this generated crisis exactly as was the plan. This is not a bug in the system. This is a feature of the Great Reset. You don't have to go very far for that information. You can turn to COVID-19, The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab, the book that he wrote about this, in which he says repeatedly, small businesses will suffer disproportionately. He talks about hospitality and retail. He talks about small restaurants that are more likely to be affected by this, while the big chains will thrive. And that's, lo and behold, that's exactly what we're seeing. It's almost as if this is a coordinated agenda to help big business at the expense of small enterprise. And it's almost as if they know this 100%. This is not rocket science. So none of that is surprising to me. What is surprising, or it shouldn't be surprising really, but what is exceptionally revealing is the way that these pretend lefty socialist types are overwhelmingly on board with the COVID-19 agenda and are some of the most vociferous smearers of any conspiracy theorists, oh no, conspiracy theorists, who would question whether this is part of a coordinated agenda. And we all know the types that are going around doing this, the Moon of Alabamas and the Tim Andersons and the George Galloways and others who pretend to be all for the little man, but don't care at all that these lockdowns that they are 100% behind and supporting are affecting the poorest of the poor disproportionately, while the richest of the rich continue getting richer on this scam. It is disgusting. It needs to be called out. And anyone who doesn't recognize what is happening right now is either an idiot or a useful tool or actually part of the agenda. Take your pick. But it's time to start drawing lines in the sand. And oh no, they might call me a conspiracy theorist for theorizing that there may be a conspiracy here. Oh well, so be it. I am a conspiracy theorist. And hey, let's look at some facts and evidence. Let's start with Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and the planned agenda that's going on here. Speaking of which, I will have a lot more to say on that tomorrow, when I release a podcast on the Great Reset and the actual conspiracy that's taking place.
James, I mentioned this morning on my morning show, this day in history, Mary, Queen of Scots, goes on trial for conspiracy against Queen Elizabeth I. It is part of history, conspiracy. Now, when you were talking about fake lefties, I thought you were talking about like fake rebel rock bands and